Listen, I have been in the Galactic Defense Coalition for 73 cycles. 73. That is a long time by anyone's standards, even for a Vrellian like me, whose species lives for 200 cycles on average. I have trained soldiers from 47 different species. Lorthians with their 6 arms. Yefits who can breathe underwater and in vacuum. Gormath warriors who stand 12 feet tall and can bench press a small transport vehicle. I have seen it all, or so I thought. My name is Instructor Vrell Takken, and I am about to tell you about the day I watched a human train. The day everything I knew about physical conditioning, mental fortitude, and the very concept of reasonable limitations got thrown out the nearest airlock. It started on a typical morning at Forward Training Base 17, located on the moon of Kresha Prime. The facility sprawls across 300 square miles of gray dust and prefabricated buildings. Not pretty, but functional. The base hosts recruits from all corners of the coalition, turning soft civilians into something resembling soldiers. I was in my office, reviewing the quarterly performance metrics and wondering why the Yefit squad kept flooding the barracks showers when Lieutenant Kess walked in. Kess is Taurillian, which means she has purple skin, 4 eyes, and absolutely no sense of personal space. "Instructor Takken," she said, already too close to my desk. "We have a new transfer." I did not look up from my datapad. Species? A human. That made me look up. Human? As in from Earth? That backwater planet on the outer rim that just joined the Coalition 2 cycles ago? That is the one. Wham! I leaned back in my chair, which groaned under my weight. Vrellians are not a small species. I heard about them. Death World species, right? High-gravity planet, toxic atmosphere in some regions, aggressive fauna? Correct, Kess said, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence, which I have learned means she is uncertain about something. The human is requesting access to the training facilities. Wants to, quote, maintain his routine, end quote. His routine. I repeated the words slowly. Most species take a rest day after arriving at a new posting. The transport from Earth alone takes 6 days through subspace. Apparently humans do not believe in rest days. I stood up, all 9 feet of me unfolding from the chair. Fine. Show me where this human is. I want to observe. Maybe I will learn something about this new species. Kess led me across the compound to Training Hall 7, our main physical conditioning center. The building is huge, containing everything from standard running tracks to gravity manipulation chambers. As we approached, I could hear something. A rhythmic pounding sound, steady and relentless. "He is already inside," Kess said. We entered through the side door. The hall was empty except for one figure in the center of the running track. A human, male, based on the briefing documents I had skimmed. He wore simple gray shorts and a sleeveless shirt, both already dark with sweat despite the climate-controlled environment. He was running. Now, running is not unusual. Every species runs. But there was something about the way this human ran that made me stop and stare. His feet hit the track with mechanical precision. His breathing came in controlled bursts. His arms pumped at his sides with zero wasted motion. "How long has he been running?" I asked Kess. She checked her datapad. 47 minutes at current pace. What pace? 12.3 miles per hour. I did some quick mental math. That is, what, a 5-minute mile? For 47 minutes straight? Affirmative. Most species can sprint fast for short bursts, but sustained running at that speed? The Chlorthians could do it, maybe. But they have 6 legs and a completely different musculature. Humans have only 2 legs, and this one was maintaining a pace that would exhaust most coalition soldiers in 10 minutes. "Get me his file," I said, unable to look away from the human. Kess handed me her datapad. I scrolled through the information while watching the human continue his endless circuit of the track. Name: Jackson Reynolds. Age: 28 Earth years. Height: 6 foot 2 inches. Weight: 205 pounds. Previous occupation: something called a Marine Corps infantry officer. combat experience, extensive, deployed 4 times to various conflict zones on Earth. The file noted that he had volunteered for the Coalition exchange program, which allowed Earth military personnel to train with alien forces. His fitness evaluation scores were marked in red, which usually meant there was an error in data entry. "These numbers cannot be correct," I said, pointing at the screen. "It says here he can run 26.2 miles in under 3 hours. "I verified with Earth Command," Kess replied. "The numbers are accurate. 26 miles. That is a marathon distance in under 3 hours. "Yes, instructor." I watched Reynolds complete another lap. His form had not deteriorated at all. "What else does he do for, as he called it, his routine?" Kess scrolled through her datapad. "According to his request form, after running he will perform calisthenics, weight training, and combat drills. Then he will eat, rest for 6 hours, and repeat." Repeat? The same routine twice a day? Every day, apparently, except 1 day per week, which he calls a rest day, where he only runs half the distance and does lighter weight training. That made me laugh. Actually laugh out loud. His rest day includes running 13 miles and lifting weights. This has to be a joke. Some kind of human humor. "I do not believe it is a joke, instructor." I handed back the datapad. "Fine, I will watch. This should be entertaining at least. When he collapses in the next 10 minutes, make sure the medical team is ready." But Reynolds did not collapse in 10 minutes, or 20, or 30. He ran for a full hour at that same relentless pace, then slowed to a walk for 5 minutes, breathing hard but steady. I thought maybe he was done. Maybe he had some sense after all. I was wrong. He moved to the center of the training hall, found an open space on the padded floor, and dropped into a push-up position. Then he started counting. Out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His form was perfect. Back straight, core tight, full range of motion, down until his chest nearly touched the floor, then up until his arms locked. Again and again. 23, 24, 25. Kess and I watched from the observation platform above. By now, several other instructors had joined us, curious about the human. Instructor Vrell, a Clorthian who trains our heavy assault units. Instructor Yenna, a Gormath who could break most beings in half with one hand. Instructor Piff, a small Jexian who specializes in stealth operations. 57, 58, 59. "How many is he going to do?" Vrell asked, his translator implant rendering his clicking language into Coalition standard. "I have no idea," I admitted. Reynolds hit 100 push-ups and kept going. At 150, Yenna grunted. "Impressive. For a 2-legged mammal." At 200, Piff said, his muscles should be burning with lactic acid. At 250, I said nothing because I was too busy recalculating everything I thought I knew about endurance training. Reynolds finally stopped at 300. 300 perfect push-ups. He rolled onto his back, chest heaving, and stared at the ceiling for exactly 30 seconds. Then he sat up and moved into the next exercise, sit-ups. Hundreds of them, with the same mechanical precision, and then squats. Bodyweight squats that made his legs tremble but never gave out. Then pull-ups on the overhead bar, his body rising and falling like a piston. "This is not normal," Vrell said. "Even for a Death World species, this level of self-inflicted suffering serves no tactical purpose." But I was starting to understand. Not fully, not yet, but a picture was forming in my mind. Humans were not just from a Death World. They were a species that had survived that Death World by becoming harder, tougher, more resilient than their environment. And Reynolds was not just maintaining his routine. He was maintaining his edge, his weapon. His body was a weapon, and he was keeping it sharp. After 90 minutes of calisthenics, Reynolds moved to the weight room section of the hall. He loaded a barbell with plates. Heavy plates. I ran the calculation. 225 pounds. He positioned himself under the bar, gripped it, and lifted it onto his shoulders. Then he squatted. deep, full squats where his hips dropped below his knees. He did 10 repetitions, racked the weight, rested for 60 seconds, then did it again. "He is going to hurt himself," Jenna said. "Skeletal structure cannot handle that load." But Reynolds did 5 sets of 10 repetitions. Then he added more weight and did 5 sets of 5. Then he moved to the bench press station and started the whole process over again with a different exercise. 2 hours into his training session, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Reynolds was not pushing himself. Not really. He was working hard, yes, sweating, breathing heavy, muscles straining. But he was in control. Completely in control. This was just another day for him. Routine. Normal. What kind of species considers this normal? "I am going down there," I announced. "Instructor, I would advise against interrupting him," Kess said. "Humans can be, territorial about their training." "I am not interrupting. I am introducing myself." I took the stairs down to the main floor and walked across the training hall. Reynolds was in the middle of his 6th set of deadlifts, pulling 315 pounds off the ground like it was a small child. He noticed me approaching in the mirror and set the weight down carefully. "Sir," he said, turning to face me. His voice was rough, probably from the exertion. Sweat poured down his face and soaked his shirt completely through. Up close, I could see his muscles quivering from fatigue. "Instructor Vrell Takken," I said. "I run this training facility. You must be Jackson Reynolds." "Yes, sir. Just finishing up my morning session." He grabbed a towel from his bag and wiped his face. "Morning session." "Of course. Because apparently this was only the beginning. I have been observing your routine. It is quite intense." Reynolds shrugged. "Standard PT, sir." "Nothing special." "Nothing special. This human just ran an hour at sprinting pace, did 800 calisthenics, and lifted several tons of weight cumulatively, and he called it nothing special." "How often do you train like this?" I asked, genuinely curious. 6 days a week, sir. Sometimes 7 if I am preparing for deployment." "And your rest day?" "Half-distance run, some stretching, mobility work. Keep the body loose." I studied him carefully. "Why?" That made him pause. He set down the towel and looked at me directly. Humans have forward-facing eyes, predator eyes, and Reynolds had the eyes of someone who had seen combat and survived. "Why do I train, sir?" "Yes. Why push yourself to this extreme? You are no longer on Earth. The gravity here is 0.87 Earth standard. Everything is easier. Why not take advantage of that?" Reynolds smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Because the enemy does not care if I am tired, sir. The enemy does not care if I am sore or hungry or scared. The enemy only cares about killing me and my team. So I train until my body does not give out. I train until I can keep going when every part of me wants to quit. I train so that when the moment comes when it is life or death, I have something left in the tank." He picked up his water bottle and drank half of it in one long gulp. "Besides, sir, pain is just weakness leaving the body. That is what my first drill instructor told me back on Earth. Never forgot it. Pain is just weakness leaving the body." I have heard a lot of motivational sayings in my 73 cycles. Most of them are garbage designed to make recruits feel better about their inadequacy. But this one resonated differently. Because Reynolds was not saying it to feel better. He was saying it because he believed it. He lived it. "What did you lift before you came here?" I asked. "What?" "Before deployment? I was pulling 405 on deadlift, benching 315, squatting 375. It's not great numbers, but decent. Not great numbers. This human was lifting nearly twice his body weight and calling it not great. Why the decrease? 6 days in a transport ship with limited equipment will do that, sir. I will build back up over the next few weeks." He said it so casually, like it was a minor inconvenience instead of a complete disruption of his training cycle. "Well, Reynolds, The facility is yours. If you need anything, let Lieutenant Kess know. We have equipment rated for Gormath strength training if the standard weights are not sufficient. Appreciate it, sir. Though I brought my own weighted vest and resistance bands just in case. He gestured to his bag. Old habits. And of course he did. I left him to finish his workout and returned to the observation deck. The other instructors were still there, watching Reynolds move through the final exercises of his routine. What did he say? Vrell asked. He said this is standard. Nothing special. Yenna snorted. Either he is lying or humans are insane. Both, I said. Definitely both. Reynolds finished his training after 3 total hours. 3 hours of non-stop physical exertion that would hospitalize most coalition recruits. He packed up his gear, drank more water, and walked out of the training hall like he had just finished a light warm-up. Kess, I want you to monitor him, I ordered. Record his entire routine. Diet, sleep schedule, everything. If Earth is sending us more soldiers like this, I need to know what we are dealing with. Yes, instructor. Over the next week, I watched Reynolds with increasing fascination and, I will admit, a growing sense of dread. Because it turned out his morning session was just the appetizer. Every afternoon, after a 6-hour break that included eating enough food to feed 3 Vrellians, sleeping for exactly 4 hours, and doing something he called studying tactical manuals, Reynolds returned to the training hall for round 2. Round 2 focused on combat skills. He spent hours hitting a heavy bag with his fists, elbows, knees, and shins. The impacts echoed through the hall like artillery fire. He practiced weapon drills with rifles, pistols, and knives until his movements became one continuous flowing motion. He ran obstacle courses wearing a 60-pound weighted vest. The weighted vest became his constant companion. He wore it everywhere. Running, lifting, drilling. When I asked him why, he said, "Because in combat I will be carrying gear, sir. Might as well get used to the weight." Logical. Brutal, but logical. By day 4, other recruits started noticing the human. They would stop their own training to watch him work. Whispers spread through the base. Have you seen the human? Did you hear what he lifted? How far he ran? Some recruits tried to match his intensity. A young Clorthian named Blex attempted to run alongside Reynolds one morning. He lasted 11 minutes before his 6 legs cramped up simultaneously and he collapsed in a heap. Reynolds stopped, helped him to the medical bay, then resumed his run without breaking stride. A Gormath recruit challenged Reynolds to a deadlift competition. The Gormath pulled 600 pounds. Impressive. Reynolds looked at the bar, looked at the Gormath and said, "Awesome lift, man. You are way stronger than me." The Gormath swelled with pride. Then Reynolds added, "How many reps can you do?" 3. The Gormath could do 3 reps at 600 pounds before his muscles gave out. Reynolds dropped the weight to 405, his old max, and did 15 reps. Slow, controlled, perfect form. The Gormath stared in disbelief. "Strength is great," Reynolds told him after. "But endurance wins fights. You hit hard once. I can hit hard 50 times. Who do you think walks away?" The Gormath had no answer. On day 7, I found Reynolds in the training hall at 0300 hours, on the middle of the night cycle. He was alone, working through some kind of meditation routine, slow, controlled movements that looked almost like dance. "Could not sleep?" I asked, announcing my presence. Reynolds finished his movement before responding. "Restless, sir. Sometimes my mind does not shut off. This helps." "What is this exercise called?" "Yoga, sir. Ancient practice from Earth. It helps with flexibility, balance, and mental clarity. Mental clarity. After everything else this human put himself through, he still needed more training. But this time for his mind." I sat down on a nearby bench. "Reynolds, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sir." "Why did you volunteer for the exchange program? You have a successful career on Earth, combat experience. You could have stayed there, trained your own people." Why come out here, millions of light years from home, to train with aliens? Reynolds held his current pose, some kind of one-legged balance, for another 30 seconds before lowering down. He sat cross-legged on the mat and looked at me with those predator eyes. Because Earth is part of the Coalition now, sir, that means when a fight comes, and a fight always comes, we will be fighting alongside you. Alongside Vrellians, Clorthians, Gormaths, everyone. I need to understand how you think, how you fight, how you train. And you need to understand us, humans. Because I guarantee you, sir, we fight differently than anyone you have ever seen. How so? We do not give up, sir. Ever. You can shoot us, stab us, break our bones, and we will keep coming. It is in our DNA. Literally. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Predators, disease, other humans, the weather itself. Everything wanted us dead, and we survived. Not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the most stubborn, by refusing to quit when any sane species would lay down and die. He stood up and grabbed his water bottle. The Coalition has amazing soldiers, sir. I have seen the files. But I think you have been fighting wars the civilized way, the polite way. Rules of engagement, proportional response, minimal casualties. That is good. That is how it should be. But sooner or later, you are going to run into an enemy who does not play by those rules. And when that day comes, you are going to need someone crazy enough to fight dirty. Someone who will do whatever it takes to win. Reynolds drank his water and looked at me steadily. That is what humans bring to the table, sir. We are your barbarians, your last resort, your, what do you call it, ace in the hole. And I am here to make sure when you need us, we are ready. I sat there for a long moment, processing his words. Then I asked the question that had been building in my mind all week. Reynolds, what happens if you stop training? What happens if you take a real break? A week off, maybe 2? His expression went dark. Then I get soft, sir. And soft gets people killed. My people, your people, cannot let that happen. So you will train like this forever? Until your body breaks down? Until my body breaks down or the war is over, sir. Whichever comes first. He smiled that not happy smile again. Though between you and me, I think my body is going to outlast most wars. I believed him. On day 10, during one of Reynolds' afternoon combat drill sessions, an alarm blared across the base. Not a drill, a real alert. Hostile forces detected approaching Crescia Prime. Unknown ships, unknown origin. All personnel to battle stations. The training hall emptied in seconds as recruits rushed to their posts. All except Reynolds. He calmly packed his gear, secured his weapons, and walked toward the exit. No panic, no rushing, just smooth, practiced movements. I caught up with him at the door. Reynolds, you are not assigned to a combat unit yet. Report to the bunkers with the other unassigned personnel. He looked at me with those predator eyes. With respect, sir, if there is a fight, I should be in it. You have no armor, no powered suit, no integration with Coalition combat systems. I have my rifle and my sidearm. That is all I need. Before I could respond, Lieutenant Kess' voice came over the comm system. All instructors to command center. Immediate briefing. Go, sir, Reynolds said. I will be fine. Against my better judgment, I went. The command center was chaos. Screens showed multiple hostile craft entering the system. Fast movers, heavily armed. They were targeting the mining stations in the outer belt before pushing toward the planet. What are we dealing with? I asked the base commander, General Threx. Pirates, we think. Possibly mercenaries. They hit 3 convoys in the last week. Now they are getting bold. Threx was a Taurillian like Kess, and all 4 of his eyes were narrowed in concentration. We have defensive platforms online, but they are designed for single-ship threats, not a coordinated assault like this. Fighter wings are scrambling now. Ground forces? On standby. If they make it past our orbital defense, we will have to repel boarders. This facility has valuable equipment and supplies. They will come for us. The next 3 hours were tense. We watched the battle unfold on long-range sensors. Our fighters engaged the pirates in a furious dogfight among the asteroids. We lost ships. The pirates lost more. But they kept coming. Eventually, 2 pirate craft broke through the defensive screen and made for the moon's surface, targeting Forward Training Base 17. All combat-ready personnel, defensive positions. Threx ordered. Lock down the facility. Activate auto defenses. I grabbed my plasma rifle and headed for the armory to gear up. As I ran through the corridors, I passed Reynolds. He was already in position at one of the exterior defensive hardpoints, rifle ready, calm as still water. "Reynolds, I told you to report to the bunkers." "Sorry, sir. Must not have heard you over the alarm." His tone suggested he had heard me perfectly well and had chosen to ignore the order. I wanted to discipline him, send him away. But looking at his face, at the absolute certainty in his eyes, I made a decision. Stay low. Follow the lead of the coalition troops. Do not do anything stupid. No promises on that last one, sir? The pirate ships landed 300 yards from the facility. Troops poured out. 40, maybe 50 hostiles, heavily armed, wearing assault armor. They advanced on our position with professional precision. Our defensive turrets opened fire. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds tore into their formation. Several pirates fell. The rest took cover and returned fire. The battle was on. I fought alongside Clorthian heavy troopers and Yefit scouts. We held the main entrance. The pirates threw everything at us. Grenades, rockets, suppressive fire. They were good, well-trained, determined. But we were better. After 20 minutes of intense fighting, the pirate assault stalled. They had underestimated our defensive capabilities. Now they were pinned down, taking casualties, losing momentum. That was when I heard it. Gunfire. But different from the plasma weapons the Coalition uses. Sharper. Faster. A staccato rhythm that cut through the battlefield noise. I risked a glance toward Reynolds' position. He had moved, not backward to safety but forward, toward the enemy. He was advancing by himself, using cover expertly, firing controlled bursts from his rifle. And pirates were falling. "What is that idiot doing?" Vrell shouted over the comm. "Being human," I muttered. Reynolds moved like water, smooth, flowing from one position to the next. His rifle barked constantly. Every burst hit a target. He rolled behind a cargo container as return fire chewed up the ground where he had been standing, came up on the other side and dropped 2 more pirates. The enemy started to panic. They could not pin him down. Every time they thought they had him located, he was somewhere else. Flanking. Advancing. Attacking. One pirate tried to rush him with a blade. Stupid. Reynolds sidestepped the thrust, struck the pirate in the throat with the butt of his rifle and put 2 rounds through the helmet while the pirate was still falling. "He is going to get himself killed," Yenna said over the comm. But Reynolds did not get killed. He got angry. I watched through my scope as a pirate thrown a grenade toward the medical bay, where wounded Coalition troops were being treated. Reynolds saw it too. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the grenade, scooped it up mid-bounce, and hurled it back at the enemy position. The explosion killed 3 pirates and sent the rest scattering. "Covering fire," I ordered. "Support the human." Our troops laid down a wall of plasma as Reynolds pressed his advantage. He moved through the enemy position like a force of nature, shooting, striking, kicking. One pirate tried to grab him from behind. Reynolds reversed his grip on his rifle, drove the stock into the pirate's chest plate, and followed up with a headbutt that cracked the helmet visor. While that pirate staggered, Reynolds shot 2 others who were trying to flank him. The entire assault fell apart after that. The remaining pirates broke and ran for their ships. Our fighters finished them off before they could escape the atmosphere. The battle was over. I found Reynolds near the cargo containers, reloading his rifle with practiced hands. His armor was scorched in places where enemy fire had come too close. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye. But he was standing. He was alive. That, I said slowly, was the stupidest, most reckless, most insane thing I have ever witnessed. Reynolds looked up at me and grinned. Actually grinned. "You should see me on a bad day, sir." "You disobeyed my direct order to stay in position." "Yes, sir." "You advanced on a superior enemy force by yourself." "Yes, sir." "You threw a live grenade with your bare hands." "Yes, sir. Though, to be fair, it was their grenade first." I wanted to yell at him, write him up, have him disciplined, but I could not. Because looking around at the battlefield, at the pirates we had defeated, at the medical bay he had saved, I realized something. Reynolds had not been reckless. He had been effective, brutally, terrifyingly effective. And that was when it hit me. What Reynolds had said about humans, about refusing to quit, about fighting dirty, about being the barbarians the Coalition would need someday. He had not been bragging. He had been warning me. I cleared my throat, suddenly aware that my eyes were, how do humans say it, getting misty. "Good work, soldier. You saved lives today." Reynolds nodded. "Just doing my job, sir. Just doing his job." As if single-handedly turning the tide of a battle was routine, or normal. For him, maybe it was. That night, after the casualties were treated, the damage repaired, and the reports filed, I sat alone in my office. I pulled up Reynolds' file again and read through it more carefully. His combat record, his training history, his medical reports showing broken bones that had healed, injuries that should have ended careers but did not. Lieutenant Kess entered without knocking. "Instructor, you should see this." She handed me her datapad, security footage from the training hall, time-stamped for 0400 hours. Just 1 hour after the battle had ended and everyone else was resting. The footage showed Reynolds, back in the training hall, running. The same relentless pace as always. His face was set in determination. His movements were precise despite the day he had been through. "He did not rest at all," Kess said quietly. "He went straight from the battle to his routine. Like nothing happened." I watched the human run lap after lap, and I realized something that made me put my head in my hands. We were not ready for humans, not even close. They were going to change everything about how we fought wars, or how we trained soldiers, how we thought about sacrifice and determination and the limits of flesh and blood. And Reynolds was just one human. One. Earth had billions more. "Kess," I said, looking up at her, "I need you to send a message to Coalition Command. Tell them we need to completely revise our training protocols. Because what we are doing now, what we think is hard, what we think pushes soldiers to their limits, it is a warm-up compared to what humans consider normal. They will think you have gone mad, Instructor." I laughed. It came out a little shaky. "Maybe I have. Or maybe I have just seen the future of Coalition military forces. And it scares me. It genuinely scares me." I watched Reynolds complete another lap on the screen, never slowing, never stopping. "Schedule a meeting with Reynolds tomorrow morning. I want to discuss implementing some of his training methods with our other recruits. Modified, obviously. I do not want to kill anyone." "Yes, Instructor." After Kess left, I sat in the dark office for a long time, thinking about pain being weakness leaving the body, about refusing to quit, about humans and their terrible, beautiful, absolutely insane approach to existence. And I realized that at some point during the week I had been watching Jackson Reynolds train, my perspective had completely shifted. I had gone from thinking he was crazy to understanding that maybe, just maybe, we were the crazy ones. We had been coasting, taking the easy path, training to minimum standards instead of maximum potential. Humans did not know how to coast. They only knew how to push, and push, and push some more. I pulled up my own training schedule on my terminal, looked at it with fresh eyes. 2 hours of light exercise, 3 days per week. What I had considered adequate maintenance for an aging instructor. I deleted it, started writing a new one. If a human could train for 6 hours a day, every day, despite injury and exhaustion and pain, then I could do better than 2 hours 3 times per week. Time to remember what I had forgotten over 73 comfortable cycles. Time to remember that being a soldier, a real soldier, requires sacrifice. Tomorrow I would start. Tomorrow I would show Reynolds that aliens could be just as stubborn as humans. Tomorrow. But first I sat in my office and let the tears come. Not from sadness. Not from fear. From something else entirely. Something like respect and awe and the sudden understanding that we had just welcomed a species into the coalition who would reshape everything we thought we knew about warfare. And we had no idea what we had signed up for. Morning came too fast. My alarm went off at 0500 hours, which was 2 hours earlier than my normal wake-up time. My body protested. Every joint ached from 73 cycles of existence. But I dragged myself out of bed anyway, pulled on my training uniform, and headed to the facility. Reynolds was already there. Of course he was. He was in the middle of his warm-up, which consisted of movements that would constitute a full workout for most species. Dynamic stretches, bodyweight exercises, mobility drills. Sweat already glistened on his skin, despite the cool morning air. "Morning, sir," he called out when he saw me. "You are up early." "Thought I would join you," I said, trying to sound casual. "See if this old Vrellian can keep up with a human." Reynolds smiled. A real smile this time, not the predator grin. "I would be honored, sir. Though fair warning, I do not go easy on training partners. I would not expect you to." We started with a run. Just a simple 5-mile circuit around the base perimeter. Reynolds set what he called an easy pace. 8-minute miles. Easy, right. I lasted 2 miles before my lungs started burning, 3 miles before my legs turned to rubber. At 4 miles, I was seriously considering calling for medical evacuation. But I looked over at Reynolds, running beside me with that same mechanical precision, and I kept going. We crossed the 5-mile mark. I immediately collapsed onto the nearest bench, gasping for air like a drowning yefet. Reynolds handed me a water bottle. "Good work, sir. That is a solid effort." "I am dying," I managed between breaths. "You are not dying. You are adapting." Big difference. He sat down next to me, barely winded. "First run is always the hardest. Tomorrow will be easier." "Tomorrow?" I stared at him. "You expect me to do this again tomorrow?" "If you want to get stronger, yes, sir." Consistency is key. The body adapts to stress over time. You stress it, let it recover, stress it again. Eventually, what feels impossible today becomes easy. He made it sound so simple, so logical. And I hated that he was right. Over the next 2 weeks, something strange happened at Forward Training Base 17. Other instructors started joining my morning runs with Reynolds. First it was just Vrell, the Clorthian. Then Yenna, the Gormath. Then Piff, the Jexian. Then Lieutenant Kess. None of us could match Reynolds' pace. Not even close. But we tried. And slowly, painfully, we improved. Vrell lost 15 pounds of excess weight. Yenna added 30 pounds to her deadlift. Piff increased her mile time by 2 full minutes. Kess stopped complaining about the stairs to the command center. And me? I started sleeping better, eating better. My chronic back pain, which had plagued me for 10 cycles, began to fade. My uniform fit differently. Tighter in some places, looser in others. "You look younger, instructor," one of the Clorthian recruits told me during a drill session. "More, vital. Vital. I liked that word." But the real changes were happening with the recruits. Word had spread about Reynolds and his training methods. Young soldiers from a dozen species started asking if they could train with the human. Some out of curiosity, some out of pride, wanting to prove they could hang with a death worlder. some because they genuinely wanted to improve. Reynolds welcomed them all. He never turned anyone away. But he also never lowered his standards. I watched him work with a young Taurillian named Vexex, who wanted to increase his endurance. Reynolds designed a program, started Vexex on short runs, built up distance gradually, taught him breathing techniques, monitored his form, adjusted the plan when Vexex struggled. After 6 weeks, Vexex completed his first 10-mile run. He came into my office afterward, all 4 eyes shining with pride, and said, "Instructor, I never knew I could do that. Never thought my body was capable." Thank Reynolds, not me. I did, sir. You know what he told me? He said I was tougher than I knew, that most limits are mental, not physical. That the body can handle way more than the brain thinks it can. I had heard Reynolds say similar things to other recruits. It was becoming his unofficial motto. Your body is capable of more. You are tougher than you think. Pain is temporary. Quitting is forever. Simple phrases. But they resonated, especially with young soldiers who had been told their whole lives what their species could and could not do, what their physical limitations were, what was possible. Reynolds was teaching them that possible was negotiable. 3 months into his deployment, Coalition Command sent an assessment team to evaluate the exchange program. A panel of senior officers who wanted to determine if having humans at Coalition facilities was worth the cost and logistics. General Threx asked me to present Reynolds' training data and integration results. I spent 2 days preparing the briefing, compiling performance metrics, before and after comparisons, injury reports, everything. The assessment team arrived on a Tuesday, 5 officers representing 5 different species. They sat in the conference room with their data pads and skeptical expressions while I walked them through the numbers. Since Jackson Reynolds' arrival, overall recruit fitness scores have increased by an average of 18%. Injury rates are down 9%, despite increased training intensity. Graduation rates from basic conditioning have improved by 12%. Recruit morale, as measured by our quarterly surveys, has increased significantly. Colonel Brent, a Gormath with more decorations on his chest than I could count, interrupted me. Instructor Takken, these numbers are impressive. But correlation is not causation. How do we know the human is responsible? I had prepared for this question. I pulled up a graph showing the timeline. As you can see, sir, these improvements began within 2 weeks of Reynolds' arrival and have continued steadily since. Prior to his arrival, our metrics were flat or declining. The correlation is strong enough to suggest causation. Or, said Commander Yell, a Jexian with cold black eyes, you have simply been inspired to work harder, and your improved performance as instructors has elevated recruit outcomes. The human may be incidental. That made me pause. Not because she was wrong, but because she was partially right. Reynolds had inspired us, changed how we approached training, made us question our assumptions about physical limits and mental toughness. You are correct, Commander, I admitted. Reynolds has influenced how we teach. But I would argue that influence is precisely his value. He is not just a soldier. He is a force multiplier. His presence makes everyone around him better. By doing what exactly? Brent asked. What is his secret? What does he do that we cannot? He refuses to accept limits, sir. When we tell him something is hard, he does it anyway. When we say something is impossible, he asks why. When we establish a standard, he exceeds it. And by doing so, he shows our recruits that they are capable of more than they believed. The assessment team exchanged glances. I could tell they were not entirely convinced. I would like to observe this human myself, Yell said. See him train. Speak with him. Form my own assessment. Of course, Commander. He will be in Training Hall 7 at 0600 hours tomorrow morning. The next morning, the entire assessment team assembled in the observation deck. I joined them, curious to see their reactions. Reynolds was below, working through his routine. Today was a heavy lifting day. He started with barbell squats. loaded 415 pounds onto the bar, descended into a deep squat, paused at the bottom, exploded upward. 5 repetitions. Racked the weight. Rested 90 seconds. Repeated. His form is excellent, Brent admitted grudgingly. But 415 pounds is not remarkable for someone his size. Our Gormath recruits lift more. Watch, I said. Reynolds continued. 5 sets of 5 reps at 415. Then he reduced the weight to 315 and did 3 sets of 10. Then he dropped to 225 and did 3 sets of 20. What is he doing? Yell asked. Building work capacity. The heavy sets develop maximum strength. The lighter sets build muscular endurance. He trains the entire spectrum. Reynolds moved to bench press. Similar approach. Heavy weight for low reps. Moderate weight for medium reps. Light weight for high reps. Then overhead press. Then rows. Then accessory work for smaller muscle groups. 2 hours later, he was still going. The assessment team watched in silence. How often does he do this? Brent finally asked. 6 days per week, sir. Sometimes 7. For how long? He has been training at this intensity since he was 18 years old, according to his file. That is 10 Earth years of consistent, progressive overload on his musculoskeletal system. Yell leaned forward, all 6 of her eyes focused on Reynolds. What happens if he stops? He gets weaker. Loses the adaptations his body has built. So he does not stop. Ever. He takes strategic rest days, light training to facilitate recovery. But complete cessation? No. He told me once that stopping is not an option. Commander Hef, a Yefit who had been silent until now, spoke up. This is pathological, obsessive, possibly indicative of underlying psychological issues. I had expected that response. With respect, Commander, humans do not view it that way. For them, this level of physical training is normal, expected. Part of their warrior culture. On Earth, their elite military units train far harder than Reynolds does here. Harder than this? Hef looked incredulous. Yes, sir. I researched it. Earth has special operations forces that train 8 to 12 hours per day. They run 20-plus miles with heavy packs. They do thousands of push-ups and pull-ups weekly. They train in extreme heat, extreme cold, underwater in mountains, in jungles. They deprive themselves of sleep and food to build resilience. They voluntarily endure suffering that would break most coalition soldiers. The assessment team processed this information. Brent broke the silence. Why? What possible tactical advantage justifies that level of self-destruction? Because it works, sir. Human special operations forces have a reputation on Earth for accomplishing impossible missions. Outnumbered, outgunned, operating in hostile territory, they succeed, not through superior technology or firepower, but through sheer determination. They simply refuse to quit. I pulled up footage from the pirate attack 3 months prior, showed them Reynolds advancing alone against multiple hostiles, the grenade throw, the hand-to-hand combat, the absolute fearlessness. This is what humans bring to the coalition, sirs. Not just physical capability, though that is impressive, but mental fortitude. The kind that cannot be taught in a classroom or simulated in a drill. The kind that only comes from voluntarily pushing yourself beyond what you think you can endure, over and over, until your mind learns that your body will not quit. Yell turned to me. You believe the coalition needs this? This human approach to warfare? I believe the coalition has been fortunate, Commander. We have fought enemies who play by rules, who value their own lives and the lives of their soldiers, who retreat when losses become too high. But we are expanding into new territories, meeting new species, and sooner or later, we will encounter an enemy who does not care about rules or losses or civilized conduct, an enemy who will fight to the last soldier. And when that happens, we need people like Reynolds, People who can match that intensity. The room fell silent. Below, Reynolds finished his final set and moved to the cool-down area. Stretching, foam rolling, hydration. Even his recovery was disciplined. General Threx, who had been observing from the back of the room, finally spoke. "Instructor Takken, what is your recommendation?" I had thought long and hard about this moment, about what I would say if given the chance. "Sir, I recommend we expand the exchange program, bring more humans to coalition facilities, not to replace our instructors or training methods, but to complement them. Let them teach us their approach. Let our soldiers learn from them. And in return, we teach humans our tactics, our technology, our perspective. We meet in the middle and create something better than either species could achieve alone." "You want to integrate human training methods into coalition doctrine?" Yell asked. "Modified versions, yes, Commander, scaled to account for species differences. But the core principles, consistency, progressive overload, mental toughness, refusing to accept arbitrary limits? Those are universal. Any species can benefit from them." Brent stood up and walked to the observation window, watched Reynolds for a long moment. "I have been a soldier for 42 cycles, Instructor. I have seen a lot of training methods come and go, of fads that promise revolutionary results but deliver nothing. What makes you certain this human approach is different?" "Because I tried it, sir." I stood up and walked to join him at the window. 3 months ago, I could barely run 3 miles. Now I run 6 every morning. 3 months ago, I had chronic pain that limited my mobility. Now I feel better than I did 20 cycles ago. 3 months ago, I thought I knew the limits of what my body could do. Now I know I was wrong. And if an old Vrellian instructor can improve this much, imagine what young recruits can accomplish. Brent nodded slowly. "You make a compelling case." The assessment team deliberated for 2 days. They interviewed Reynolds, observed training sessions, reviewed medical data, and spoke with recruits who had worked with him. Finally, they called another meeting. General Threx delivered their decision. "The assessment team has concluded that the exchange program is valuable and should continue. Furthermore, we are recommending that human training advisors be assigned to 10 additional coalition facilities over the next year. We will also be developing a standardized cross-species training curriculum that incorporates human methodologies where appropriate." I felt something release in my chest. Relief, maybe, or validation. However, Threx continued, his 4 eyes settling on me. "This expansion will require experienced instructors who understand both coalition methods and human approaches. Instructor Takken, you are being promoted to Senior Training Coordinator. You will oversee implementation of the new program across multiple facilities." "Congratulations." Promoted. After 73 cycles of doing the same job, I was being promoted because a human taught me to run faster. Life is strange sometimes. That evening, I found Reynolds in his usual spot, working through his evening session. I waited until he finished a set before approaching. "The assessment team approved the exchange program expansion," I told him. "You are staying. And we are bringing more humans to other bases." Reynolds set down his barbell and wiped his face with a towel. "That is good news, sir. Earth Command will be pleased. It is because of you. Your work here, your example, it changed minds. Changed an entire military doctrine." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what I was trained to do, sir. Nothing special." There it was again. Nothing special. This human had revolutionized how an entire galactic military force thought about physical training, and he considered it routine. "Reynolds, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure, sir." "Do you ever doubt, ever wake up and think maybe today you will skip the run, sleep in, take it easy?" He thought about that for a moment. "Every day, sir. Every single day, part of me wants to quit, wants to stay in bed, wants to eat junk food and watch entertainment vids instead of lifting weights. But that part does not get a vote. I made a commitment. To my country, to my unit, to myself. And commitments mean something. You do not break them just because you feel like it. What if you are injured, sick? Then I modify the training, work around the injury, but I still show up, still do something. Even if it is just stretching or mobility work. The showing up is the most important part. Because once you start making excuses, once you start skipping days, it becomes easier to quit, and quitting becomes a habit. So I do not start down that road. I understood then. Reynolds was not superhuman. He struggled with the same doubts and temptations as everyone else. The difference was he had built a system that did not allow those doubts to control his actions. He had made discipline so automatic that it required no motivation. You are a good soldier, Reynolds, and a better teacher than you probably realize. Thank you, sir. That means a lot coming from you. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, watching other recruits work through their own training sessions. Some were struggling. Some were succeeding. All were trying. Hey, sir, can I ask you something now? Reynolds said. Of course. That morning after the pirate attack, Kess told me you cried while watching footage of me training. Is that true? I felt my face flush. Vrellians do not cry often, and when we do, it is considered very private. Yes, it is true. Why? How could I explain? How could I put into words the mixture of emotions I had felt? The realization that we had been coasting, the shame at my own complacency, the awe at what Reynolds represented, the fear of what was coming, of the hope that maybe we could rise to meet it. Because I saw the future that night, I said finally, and it terrified me. But it also inspired me. You humans, you are going to change everything. For the better, I think. I hope. But change is always scary, even when it is necessary. Reynolds nodded. Change is scary. But you know what is scarier? Staying the same when the universe around you is evolving. That is how species go extinct. That is how civilizations fall. You have to adapt. You have to grow. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Wise words from a 28-year-old who spent his days lifting heavy objects and running in circles. But then again, maybe wisdom came from discipline. Maybe by mastering your body, you learn to master your mind. I should let you finish your workout, I said. Actually, sir, I am done for today. Thinking about grabbing dinner. Want to join me? I could use the company. I would like that. We walked to the mess hall together. Along the way, recruits stopped to greet Reynolds, ask him questions about form, request tips on breaking through plateaus, thank him for his help. He responded to each with patience and genuine interest. At dinner, we talked about everything except training, his family back on Earth, his hometown, a place called Colorado with mountains and snow, his plans after the military. Normal conversation, easy and comfortable. You ever think about retiring, sir? He asked between bites of something that vaguely resembled earth chicken. You have given 73 cycles. That is a long career. I used to think about it. Before you arrived, I was counting down the cycles until I could leave, go somewhere quiet, rest. But now, I shook my head. Now I feel like I am just getting started. Like there is still so much work to do, so many soldiers to train. I cannot retire when we are on the verge of something important. You are going to do great things with this new position, sir. I can tell. We are going to do great things. Together, humans and aliens. That is the future. Reynolds raised his water glass. To the future, then. May it be less boring than the past. I touched my glass to his. To the future. 6 months later, I stood in the command center of Training Coordination Facility 1, watching live feeds from 10 different coalition bases. Each feed showed a human trainer working with alien recruits, teaching them to push harder, run farther, lift heavier, think differently. The program was working. Injury rates were down across the board. Performance metrics were up. Recruit satisfaction had increased. And most importantly, the culture was changing. Soldiers were taking pride in their physical capabilities, competing with each other in healthy ways, setting personal records and celebrating each other's achievements. Reynolds had been transferred to another facility 2 months prior, spreading his influence to a new group of recruits. But his legacy remained at Forward Training Base 17. The weight room had been expanded. A new running track had been built. The wall in the gym displayed personal records for every recruit who had ever trained there. At the top of every category, in bold letters, were Reynolds records. Not as targets to beat, though many tried, but as reminders. Reminders that limits were negotiable, that the body was capable of more, that discipline and consistency could transform anyone. Lieutenant Kess entered the command center carrying a data pad. "Sir, the quarterly reports from all 10 facilities are in. You should see this." I took the pad and scrolled through the numbers. They were even better than I had hoped. Across 10 bases, training 47 different species, the Human Integration Program had improved every single metric we tracked. "Have you sent this to Coalition Command?" I asked. "Not yet, sir. Wanted you to review it first. But there is something else." She pulled up a message on the screen. "Earth Command is offering to expand the program again. They want to send 50 human trainers to 50 Coalition facilities over the next year. 50 trainers. 50 humans bringing their insane, beautiful, terrifying approach to physical conditioning to the Coalition military. The ripple effects would be massive." "What is our capacity?" I asked. "We can support it, sir. We have the infrastructure and the trained coordinators now. But it is a significant expansion. Are you certain we should move this fast?" I thought about Reynolds, about that first week watching him train, about the pirate attack, about my morning runs that had gone from torture to routine to something I actually looked forward to, about the young Taurillian named Vex X, who had discovered he could do more than he thought possible. "Yes," I said firmly. "Accept Earth's offer. 50 trainers, 50 facilities. Let us do this right." "Yes, sir." After Kess left, I stood alone in the command center, looking at the wall where we had mounted a photo. It showed Reynolds and me after completing our first 10-mile run together. Both of us exhausted, covered in sweat, grinning like idiots. My time had been terrible. His had been excellent. But we had both finished. That photo represented everything the exchange program was about. Different species, different capabilities, different backgrounds, but the same goal, the same commitment, the same refusal to quit. I pulled out my personal comm unit and recorded a message. Sent it to Reynolds at his new posting. "Hey, it is Vrell. Just wanted to update you. The program is expanding again. 50 more humans coming to 50 more bases. Your influence is spreading across the Coalition, whether you like it or not. Hope your new recruits are treating you well. My morning runs are not the same without you there to make them miserable. Take care of yourself. And remember, even teachers need to take their own advice sometimes. Vrell out?" I sent the message and smiled. Somewhere out there, Reynolds was probably in the middle of his evening training session, pushing himself, refusing to quit, setting an example. And somewhere out there, some other alien instructor was watching him for the first time, thinking he was crazy, thinking his routine was impossible, thinking no one could sustain that level of intensity, that instructor had no idea what was coming. No idea how Reynolds would change their perspective, challenge their assumptions, make them better, just like he had done for me. I looked at the clock. 05:30 hours. Time for my morning run. 6 miles today. Maybe 7 if I was feeling ambitious. A year ago, that distance would have seemed impossible. Now it was just Tuesday. I grabbed my training gear and headed for the door. As I stepped out into the cool morning air, I thought about what Reynolds had told me that first week, about pain being weakness leaving the body, about refusing to accept limits, about the body being capable of more than the mind believes. And I thought about how a single human, with nothing but determination and discipline and a refusal to quit, had made an old Vrellian instructor cry. Not from sadness, not from fear, but from the sudden understanding that we had all been settling, accepting good enough, coasting, and no more. Not after Reynolds. Not after seeing what was possible when you stopped making excuses and started making progress. I started running. Steady pace. Controlled breathing, or mechanical precision. And somewhere in the back of my mind I heard Reynolds' voice. Encouraging. Challenging. Pushing. You are tougher than you think. Your body is capable of more. Pain is temporary. Quitting is forever. Simple words. But they changed everything. The human had taught this old alien dog new tricks after all. And for that I would be forever grateful. The future of the Coalition military was bright, hard, painful at times, but bright. Because now we had humans showing us the way. And humans never quit.